What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to yet another edition of Wrestling with Tomorrow. I'm your host, Mike Kinney. It is a pleasure to have you here, and I'm going to be completely transparent with you at this moment. I had every intention of doing a full podcast episode today. I want to let you know that. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. What you're going to get today is some kind of special edition version of my podcast because of what happened to me last night. The whole plan for me, really, if I'm being honest with you, I went to a wrestling show last night, like a local independent wrestling show, some people that I worked with when I was wrestling 18 years ago. And honestly, the whole thing's got me a little bit frazzled. I'll try to be as precise as I can, but I feel like if I don't actually record this for you today, I'm going to lose any kind of afterthought about what really happened to me last night at that show. I'm upset about it. I want everybody to know about that. I think that the promoters that ran the show last night should, be ashamed of themselves after everything that happened to me. And I didn't deserve it. But I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in just a few more minutes. Ironically, the the podcast title for today was going to be called "The Art of Reinvention," and talking about what that means for each and every person. I have a full agenda. Um, so that's really been the plan. Now I know you're probably wondering about the show. So a couple of things that I need to get into. Let's just start talking about the reinvention piece of it. So it's not a huge secret that, I got out of wrestling. This is March 23rd, 2025. I got out of the wrestling business 18 years ago this coming summer. And, but it feels like yesterday sometimes. When I left wrestling, I was very fortunate, had a lot of good things happening there at the end. But the reality was I was hurt that whole last year that I was wrestling, and I knew it. And I began to kind of drink my way through my last year of wrestling. And it really, when I look back on my time as a wrestler, that last year that I was in there isn't exactly how I wanted to leave it behind. It's always one of those deals where you leave it better than how you found it. And in some ways, while I do have closure on my wrestling career, I think that if I were to do anything over again, it was take that last year a little bit more seriously and not let, drinking get in the way. Now, again, I don't talk about this very often either, but after I got out of wrestling, everything was changing for me so quickly, and I didn't know what the next phase of my life was going to look like because I'd only ever planned to be a pro wrestler, and I know how crazy that can sound, but I was in it. I mean, like that's my deal. Is if I'm in it, I'm in it all the way, and I just ride it till the wheels fall off. So wrestling is very much like that for me, and I loved it. I still love it. It's just I always will. It's just always part of me. And when I got out, I just kept drinking more, and I showed up to a couple of shows, and I made an absolute fool of myself, and I began to spiral, and mainly because I just didn't know what the next phase of my life was going to look like. My whole identity, I've talked a little bit about this, but my whole identity was really wrapped up in being this character, this pro wrestler, and um, I think that you're never taught how to adjust like that. You're never taught like how to go to plan B if there was a plan B. There's never anything like that. So I just did what anybody, no, maybe not anybody else, but I did what a lot of people do, and I self-medicated. And that was really hard on me, and it was hard on my family, and I was I was spiraling. Now, good things also were happening. I finished my education during that time, but we're talking a very dark period of like 5 to 7 years of my life until I finally quit drinking. It was just escalating to the point where I knew that I was going to hurt somebody or worse. And I'm not trying to use that as a cliche. That is the truth. So I think that I'm fortunate in a lot of ways to be able to have walked away from that, from drinking without having any actual like legal repercussions because of it. But I was close, guys, and about as close as you can get without actually getting locked up. And so lucky for me, this year, it'll be October 5th, 2025. It'll be 10 years sober for me. And it's very, very cool to think back about these last 10 years and how much different my life is over the last decade. And I'm very proud of it. And I think that in a lot of ways, when I did my TED Talk, I didn't want to talk about any of the substance abuse stuff, any of the alcohol abuse stuff, because I wasn't ready to share that part of my story yet. And I think I am. I think I'm ready now. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about it this year. I'm not as ashamed as I used to be of some of the things I had done, when I was actively drinking. And so it's just, I'm in a good spot now. And, my family's doing well and my career's going well. And I'm happy, and so that brings me to last night. Last night, I showed up to this show with, a couple of friends that wanted to see some wrestling. And so I thought, well, looks like a pretty decent card. I know the promoter. I worked for him in the past. If you remember Neo Pro Wrestling, I was their heavyweight champion. It's the same promoter, generally. And, I don't go to enough shows. After I got out of wrestling, I completely distanced myself from wrestling for like 2 or 3 years. And then over time, like I'm to the point now with wrestling where I'm a fan again. I enjoy watching it from time to time. I watch WrestleMania every year. So I mean, I'm just enjoying being a fan. So I take my friends from work and we go to see some wrestling action last night. And I'm going to play the video for you here in a second because luckily the friend that was sitting with me, he took a video of the whole thing. But if you are familiar at all with local independent wrestling here in Minnesota, there's a guy who's been around for 25 years, Aaron Corbin. Now, Aaron and I broke into wrestling about the same time. We lived together at one point. We traveled together. I've known Aaron for a very, very long time. And it's no secret that, he and I have a strange past, but I always thought it was good, especially over the last few years, because if you remember a few years back on this very podcast, I interviewed him and I thought that interview went very, very well. So honestly, seeing that he was on the wrestling card last night before I got to the show was kind of cool. I thought, oh, I'll surprise Aaron. He won't know that I'm there and it'll be kind of a nice thing. And it couldn't have gone any worse. What happened was I had bought my ticket. We were sitting front row and Aaron lost his match, and before I get too far into that, the MAW is the acronym of the promotion, Midwest All Star Wrestling, and they spotted me in the audience. They came over and were on the microphone, and Brian Sager is the person that did it. Hats off to you, Brian, and nice to see you also. But anyway, Brian had come over and just wanted to know what I was up to and greet the fans. And surprisingly, there was a number of fans there last night that remembered me and never saw that coming, but that was pretty nice. And I would just said, hey, he called me Gator. I told him I hadn't been called Gator in a very, very long time. I just usually go by Mike now, and I'm just a boring dad that lives in the suburbs. So, and that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. And that was it. I mean, that was pretty much it. And then Aaron's match came. He lost his match. And not sure, he was giving the middle finger to the fans and all this stuff. So he was all worked up. And I don't know. I just stuck my hand out to give him like a fist bump. I was sitting down. I didn't stand up. And he circled in front of me. He'd gotten out of the ring and he walked past me. And then he turned back and he asked me if I was laughing at him. And I said, I'm not laughing at you. And I was trying to give him a fist bump, and I mean, literally out of nowhere, he bull rushed me and pushed me and I went flying out of my chair. And of course, my temper went through the roof and I immediately got up and went to attack him, and security split us up and the, promoters came out. I walked out. I was upset. I was yelling at them. It was right in the middle of the show. I mean, so the security guards take Aaron to the back, and there was another group of security guards that were taking me to the front door. I finally got them off of me, and I just walked out the front door and I went home. I was yelling something at them about how I bought a ticket to be there. I'm not there as a wrestler, and I don't understand why all of a sudden I'm getting attacked. And the people behind me, I landed in their lap. I didn't see it coming. It was just one of those, it was literally one of the most unprofessional things that I've seen. And I do have Aaron's phone number. And guess who's not answering the phone today? So, Aaron, if you see this, why don't you man up a little bit? Because I'd really like to understand why that happened last night. You humiliated me. And I don't want to say this is why I don't go to wrestling shows, but come on. I mean, I don't have any desire to go back to any local shows. You embarrassed me in front of my coworkers. You embarrassed me in front of some fans that I amazingly still have. And, my pride's hurt. So I didn't deserve that. I don't even know what I did. I didn't do anything, first of all. That's probably it. You just have a bad attitude. But I want to talk to you about it. I want to figure this whole thing out. So if you are watching the video podcast of this, I'm going to loop in the video right now. And if you're listening to the audio version of this, sorry, you're going to just hear some like yelling and some pushing back and forth and whatever else, but just bear with me.
Laughing? This is funny, Mike? Are you laughing?
I didn't do anything to you. I paid you. I bought it.
Mike!
You all right?
So, I mean, it happened very quick. You can see that, right? I mean, it was just, it happened so fast. I lost my temper. I am sorry for that. That shouldn't have happened. I'm not Cowboy Gator Magraw anymore. I'm not. He's been locked up for a very, very long time, and I have no desire whatsoever to open up that can of worms and let him back out. I just don't want to do it. I have no desire to be back in the ring. So if Aaron's thinking he's working some bullshit angle with me, like, give me a break, dude. Give me a break. You're a coward. You're going to attack me like that for no reason. And now you won't pick up the phone. You won't respond to me. Nothing. So, I mean, grow up. Anyway, so this is exactly why I had wanted to make sure that I recorded today, because I'm still upset about last night, and I probably will be for a while. I'll get over it, whatever. But Aaron, if you're out there, and I know you are, you owe me an apology. Not cool. Not cool. And the other thing is, this isn't something between Cowboy Gator Magraw and Aaron Corbin. No, this is Mike Kinney talking to Aaron McVicker. Grow up, Peter Pan. All right? I'm not part of one of your little silly wrestling angles, so you owe me. Anyway, now let's talk about reinvention a little bit. If I can focus and get back on track here. Reinvention is, I'm sorry, I just don't have the energy to do any more on the podcast today. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about reinvention at a later time. I just need to go relax a little bit here. I've let this whole thing that happened last night just mess with me. It's fine. I'll work through it. But I apologize. I just don't have the energy to work through the rest of this podcast today. But I'll be back, and I appreciate you listening in. Thank you for those that have tuned in. Subscribe to me here. Subscribe to me on social media, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.